welcome to Lunchtime Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. This is what is coming up on the program. Abia State Governor Otti blames the current economic challenge partly on fiscal indiscipline, accuses the federal government of printing too much money without corresponding enterprise. First draft of an amended constitution set to be presented in October 2024. Deputy Speaker Ben Kalu assures as lawmakers tinker with some provisions of the nation's grown norm. And you are not the only voice. President Bola Tinubu tackles organized labor, accuses union of embarking on too many industrial action. Thanks again for joining us on the program where we take you around the country in the world of politics for about 27 minutes. We begin the program with an economic diagnostics coming from the Abia State Governor, Dr. Otti, who blames partly the challenges the country is facing on fiscal indiscipline. He says the government also printed too much money in the past years without corresponding productivity, which negates the dynamics of market forces. Dr. Otti was guest on our program Politics Today. He says to reverse the inflationary pressures and economic headwinds, the right policies must be put in place, and that is what is required.
Every idea that I have a platform to ventilate them at the National Economic Council. But I believe that a major problem we have is financial discipline. We are dealing with an economy where we printed so much money. At the last count, I think it must be nearing 30 trillion naira. So what typically happens with ways and means is that the quantum, the basket of goods that you have available in an economy does not increase with the quantity of money you print. So if you had 100 naira, that is the basket of goods will be 100 naira. If tomorrow you decide to print another 200 naira, that same basket of goods will still be worth 300 naira, even though it's 100 naira that is the value. So you find that it does not make economic sense. Maybe in the short run, you may print some money to fill some gaps. But when it becomes an economic policy where you just keep printing and spending money, you are just deceiving yourself, because that does not improve productivity. It does not improve the quantity of goods that you have available within the economy.
And away from that, the president has taken a swipe at the Nigeria Labour Congress, saying they are not the only voice in the country. He's particularly displeased with the recurrent strike action, which he considers unacceptable given the short time he spent in office. President Bola Tinubu was speaking at the inauguration of the Lagos Red Line Railway project in Lagos, where he promises that things will get better.
Assuring you my belief that Nigeria will be out of economic problems. The labor union should understand that no matter how much we cling to our freedom and rights, to call for strike within 9 months of an administration is unacceptable. If you want to participate in the electoral process, wait on the 2027. 20. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. 27. If not, maintain peace. You are not the only voice of Nigerians.
Straight shots from the president to the labor union. Of course, we're going to follow on that later on the program. We can tell you that the first draft report of the ongoing review of the 1999 Constitution will be ready in August 2025. And that assurance is coming from the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Benjamin Kalu, who discloses this at a news conference held at the instance of the House Committee on Constitution Review. The committee, at its inauguration, gave a 24-month timeline for the conclusion of the exercise. Some of the thematic areas that the committee is hoping to receive memorandum includes residency and indigent provisions, immunity and state creation, federal structure and power devolution, local government autonomy, state police, judicial reforms, electoral reforms, among others.
We are pushing to ensure that in our activities, that in no distance time, the first draft of the work we are trying to do on the Constitution will be ready. But this will be subject to the approval of the work done by the subcommittee. But let me mention that our target is that the first draft proposal of the Constitution will be out in August 2024, first draft. So our target is that transmission of bills to Mr. President for assent will take place August 2025. And with this, we are sure that our target to get this job tidied up in 24 months will be achieved if we send it to Mr. President by August of 2025. We are hoping that by December of 2025, we will have a constitution that is fully amended.
Well, that is going to form the crux of our conversation, this amendment of the Constitution. And it's an important conversation that you should be interested and be involved. Not just be interested, you need to also be involved, because whatever happens in altering some provisions of our ground norm, which is the Constitution, is going to affect you one way or the other. So that's why, as a media organization, we're bringing this to the fore, and we'll continue to talk about this as much as possible so we can have these divergent views as to what this will look like in the future. And that's why we're being joined on the program by a legal practitioner, Mr. Stanley Ekpa, who is joining us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ekpa, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the issue of this amendment of the Constitution, I wanted your quick take, as quickly as possible, maybe in 30 seconds, on what the president said in Lagos. You know, organized labor, they've been protesting. There are people have had what they call the hunger protests across different cities of the country and all of that. So the president, in his words, is saying 3 or 4 protests in barely 9 months of my administration is too much. You're not the only voice. It's also suspecting some political undertone as well. I don't know what your impression are from that statement by the president.
Well, thank you very much. I think the first thing is we are in a constitutional democracy, and there's no timeline set for people to express their concerns on how the state is being run. The labor unions, just like other citizens, have their fundamental right to express themselves in any form legally required. Protest is one of such fundamental rights, a right to expressing citizens' concerns as to how the country is being run. So the president cannot dictate as to when in the life of his administration people can protest. But again, the Labour also have a duty to ensure that the protest falls within the walls of reasonability in terms of constructive criticism of the government, really.
Okay, there's another leg of that statement you made I wanted you to speak to, which is, it said if you want to do politics, wait for 2027. What do you make of that, referring that to the labor union?
Unfortunately, everyone cannot join political party or be party carrying members or politicians, as the case may be. Whereas we would have to wait till 2027 when the next election, general election, will be held. Those who are not politicians, those who are within other segments of the social constructs, must at all times, express themselves freely and willingly as to how best the country should be run. The right is referring to as to them running for elections is a discretionary one. The labor leaders or any other person that feels dissatisfied with how the state is run, that would want to run for office, has such right to, and it's not compulsory they should as well. But the most important thing, as I said earlier on, is that people have their right to express themselves freely, and that it should be done at all times, not at the time that the presidency or anyone would want to prescribe that people should express themselves.
So, Mr. Stanley, let's get to some of the main issue which we brought you here for, which is the Constitution Amendment. I saw some of the things that they're expecting memorandum for: residency and indigent provisions, immunity, state creation, federal structure, power devolution, LG autonomy, and all of this, police, state police, judicial reforms, and all of that. And even there are 60 lawmakers who are tinkering with the idea of the system of government. So as a general question to you is, what do you hope to see being reviewed, or do you hope to see reviewed in our constitution that you think that whatever is being done, these are maybe 1, 2, 3 things that has to be reviewed and rejigged so that we can have a country that we desire?
Thank you. First of all, I think in having a country that works for everyone, and bearing in mind the fact that for the last, since 1999, since the Fourth Republic, we've been on this journey of constitutional amendments. You've come to a point where the lawmakers must be sincere about certain things that they pursue, particularly when it comes to the Committee on Constitutional Amendments. First thing we have to look at is when we look at where we are in terms of safety in this country. There has been agitation, really, as to what form of security governance system do we need to make sure that we secure the country. And of course, if you look at the overriding opinion of people, it's to the effect that we should have state police. So the first thing I think they should begin to look at is to see that we have a policing system that works for the country, that secures the country, because every other thing is anchored on safety of the country, really. If we don't have safe environments, the businesses can't hold, and people can't really contribute to building the system. So the first thing I would think that we should be able to achieve with this time of this lifespan of amendment is to ensure that we amend the Constitution to have state police. But if you go beyond that, I would also want to see a system where Section 7 and Section 162 of the Constitution is amended to say that the local government system is functional. What we have currently is not something that should be recognized as a local government system, because there's no governance at that base level, really. And that is at the most critical level to which we need governance. So we need to see that the relevant provisions on local government is being amended. First of all, beyond just local government financial autonomy, there's a need for regular elections, really. There should be, also the idea of separate account for the local government and the state government, as Section 162 provides. And if you go beyond that, I think generally we should begin to see how best we can reduce the overwhelming powers that the presidency or the federal government is exercising at the moment. We should look at the exclusive legislative list to see how much we reduce that power to where we were in 1963. The 1963 Constitution, if you take a good look at it, you will see that there are some fundamental items like the land use and the housing system. Those things were not under the exclusive legislative list. They were under the concurrent legislative list. So we must begin to look at all this holistically to see that at the end of the day, it is not politics as usual. And also, Okay.
No, you can land on your thought. You can land on that particular thought so that I can stream in my next question.
Okay. Thank you. And then with the governors then, because that's where the problem is really, because if you look at the amendment process, you will begin to realize that the governors have fundamental role, very significant role to play in terms of politics now, not the constitutional process, because the legislature at the state level is the ones that have the responsibility to also take part in this process. But the governors also have a huge influence on the state's House of Assemblies. So we must go beyond politics to ensure that we achieve real good constitutional result for the country this time around.
It appears a lot of people are unanimous on this issue of state police, but there are concerns as well that were raised. Even in the 2014 confab, there were cons about this. And that is premised on the fact that, given the situation right now, most governors, or some of the governors, control the local government funds. It's been a battle between the federal government and them. Most of the House of Assemblies, arguably, are in the pockets of the governors. So people have their fears as much as they are desirous of a state police. These are concerns as well. We'll speak to that, but I want to move on to another part so that I touch as many issues as possible. They're going to put up a slide right now, which has to do with a proposal by 60 lawmakers talking about a parliamentary system of government where the president is just going to be ceremonial and then we have a prime minister. I want your take on that. I'm going to also juxtapose that with what was proposed. That's it on the screen. Replacing the president with the prime minister to serve as head of government, establishing the office of president as just ceremonial, then shifting the process of electing governors and chairmen from general election to voting within their respective legislative houses or regions, reducing the bureaucratic hurdles and fostering closer collaborations. And these are some of the things that were proposed by 60 lawmakers who are pushing for a parliamentary system of government. I would like you to speak on this. Is this the way to go? Mr. Stanley?
Thank you. I think that to start, yes, I'm with you. To start with, I want to think that the 60 lawmakers are actually on the right path, really, if we consider where we are in terms of cost of governance in the country. But beyond that, we have to perhaps also go back to our history, our political history, where we were at independence, to really have a better understanding of perhaps the result we are likely to achieve with a parliamentary system of government, is to also look at what we achieved in what has been termed as the best or the golden era of Nigerian political history, which is the first, the post-independence, immediately after the independence, time. When you see the result that was achieved within that period of time, when you see the cost of governance, when you also consider how effective our institutions worked, you realize the fact that there's a merit to the argument that we should go back to a parliamentary system of government. However, in going back to a parliamentary system of government, we must also consider beyond just amending the constitution or going back to such system of government. We must also look at how efficient is this going to be. We must also look at the process of, because of course it gives more even credit to people electing those who are going to represent them at the parliament. And when you now get to the parliament, that's when we begin to have the election to the majority membership in each of the houses. So it then means that a political party must have actually served the people well to be able to be elected, to have the majority to win election in the parliament. To me, I think it's a very welcome development. But again, it's something that we must not rush into. We must take time to make sure that we design a system that really works for us. I'm looking at a homegrown parliamentary system. Every country must have its own, homegrown and designed system of government that works, for.
All right, Mr. Ekpa, maybe, Mr. Ekpa, my apologies for butting in. You mentioned something, so I needed to, because I'm almost out of time. So I'm going to show you another set of slides, which you mentioned homegrown. 2014 National Conference, there was a homegrown modification, which they called the modified, I'm trying to get to it, yes, it will be on your screen soon. Yes, it's called the modified presidential system. And that's it, that the president, the president-elect shall select a vice president from the legislature. And he will appoint 18 ministers from the 6 geopolitical zones. The president will select not more than 30 members of the party, more like what you see in the British cabinet. And one of the interesting parts is the fact that every quarter the president will face these lawmakers to explain to them how he's been managing the country, as well as a State of the Nation address. Which do you prefer, total shift to parliamentary or this modified presidential system, as you can see on your screen?
I think this modified as the 2014 National Confab recommends. It seems more cumbersome than a total shift to a parliamentary system. The reason is because it's almost copied the American presidential system and then the British parliamentary system into one, collapsing into one. Number one, if you elect a president directly by the people, it then means that the president must at all times clearly communicate policies of the government to the people. There's no argument that the president can also go to the parliament to explain, because the parliament are the direct representatives of the people. However, if we are going to practice parliamentary system, we must practice parliamentary system. If we're going to practice presidential system, we have to practice presidential system. But again, where I brought in the idea of a modified one is that we must look at it from the point of, what works in electing people within our own cultural context, really, to ensure that we have both the best from the recruitment process represents us. We also have the best system also in accountability during the post-election period, which is at the point of governance as well. So I would prefer a parliamentary system of government, no doubt. But I prefer that it goes beyond just the borrowing from the two systems that the National Confab is recommending at the moment. It's something that requires a wide consultation with constitutional lawyers, with different stakeholders across the country. I doubt that it will be wise that, and I'm also thinking that it is wise that we should rush into it. But even the proposers of the system are not also thinking to that line. I read sometime last week that they are stretching it to even 2031 or thereabouts. I mean, the consultation process to transition into such system of government.
Absolutely. Brilliant take. Of course, you frown at the hybrid system. I wish I had more time. I would have taken you on the electoral reforms that is required, because I know the police had complained at some point that there's a provision in the law that says if there's an infraction, the polling unit officer has to call the police. What happens when the polling unit officer is the culprit in this case? The police is handicapped. So all of that. I must thank you so much, Mr. Stanley Ekpa, a legal practitioner, for your insights and take on these issues of national interest. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's move on now. Issues of national concern. Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has reiterated the need for a decentralized system of government to maximize development and ensure transparency and accountability in public governance in the country. Professor Soyinka made the recommendation at the 50th anniversary lecture of the Punch newspaper. He cited the current political and socio-economic development in Nigeria as a basis for his argument. He said the government has not been sincere with the citizens.
It's about time, I think, at this nation, that leaders stop taking this nation for a ride. We must decentralize. Security, has become a bugbear. From all corners of the nation, that is the cry. Decentralize. Simply so that government can come closer to the people and productivity can really be manifested as a product of citizens, not simply as a manna from heaven. That is the attitude that obtains at the moment. I know that the fear is one of collapse, breakup. That has been the excuse being given by several regimes. But suppose the nation is breaking up informally. In other words, as a fact, rather than as theory. What is wrong with genuine representatives sitting down and saying, this should be the protocols of association? Anything outside of it, anyone who does not want to accept these protocols, abide by these protocols, and manifest these protocols in the act, should take a walk. I have no problem at all with even what is known as a nation, beginning as a vast football field and ending up as a ping-pong table. If that is going to restore dignity to citizens, if that is going to guarantee 3 square meals a day, then so be it. One of my favorite expressions, which people say is extreme, is Let nations die, that humanity may live.
Strong words from the Nobel laureate. The federal government is set to launch the outsource to Nigerian initiative known as Otti, aimed at creating job opportunities for the teeming unemployed youths across the country. Briefing State House correspondent at the presidential villa, the deputy chief of staff to the president, Senator Ibrahim Hadejia, says the vice president, Senator Kashim Shettima, is expected to launch the initiative in March. The initiative is also a private-public partnership and in line with President Bola Tinubu's administration's goal of providing millions of jobs for Nigerians.
With over 200 million young and vibrant minds, competitive costs, strong government backing, and rapidly improving digital infrastructure, Nigeria is now strongly positioned to be a formidable global outsourcing hub. Otti connects international companies with Nigeria's vibrant skills and capabilities in this domain. The initiative offers comprehensive enablement across infrastructure, private sector incentives, talent development programs, and active promotion of Nigeria's proposition. Our dynamic private sector with government support is well equipped to drive Nigeria's rise as an outsourcing giant. This presents an unprecedented opportunity for job creation, entrepreneurship, skill development, and economic growth by bringing high-value outsourcing jobs onshore. As part of the broader agenda for national transformation, Otti can also significantly advance human capital development, productivity, and be a tool for poverty alleviation. I invite global businesses and partners to leverage Otti and be part of Nigeria's inspiring progress in advancing the future of work. By outsourcing to Nigeria, we can channel Nigerian youth to the global market efficiently.
Well, that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, your usual company is the last edition for the week. As we get into the weekend, next week we'll be back with more things we're tracking in the polity. Thank you so much. I'm Jeffrey Ozama. You've been served on Lunchtime.